Have you gotta be quiet the whole time?
No, we can mute it.
You have to actually be. No, well, does this do your thing if you need it?
Yeah.
This computer. Change rename David and
Now, can they hear us?
not right now. It's muted.
That's what I don't want.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes for a few more people to join, and then we'll get started.
How's your baby? You're all smiles, okay?
He's perfect as can be. Thank you for asking.
You're welcome.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. I had some connection issues, but I think I'm able to be in now. We can go started. Good evening to everyone who is joining us tonight. Thank you for coming to talk about cover crops. We have an excellent lineup of speakers who are going to tell you more about benefits of planting a cover crop and how to properly register and report to receive cost share funding. But I want to start by introducing myself. My name is Heather Sylvanik, and I manage the Fayette County Soil and Water Conservation District. And this year we are making some changes to our cover crop reimbursement program. And I want to talk about that a little bit first. So starting today, you can sign up to receive $35 per acre of cover crop planted up to 100 acres or $3,500. You can also be reimbursed for renting one of our drills to do the planting. You can get 1 day's expense up to per 50 acres planted up to 3 total days. So applications are going to be accepted for that on a first come, first served basis. And to be eligible to apply for that, you have to plant the cover crop on a registered Fayette County farm. And then you have to report the acres planted to the Farm Service Agency. And after you do that, you will get a 578 report form, and that will be required to be submitted with the application to get you in queue for funding. So I've asked Jennifer Hudnall, who is the County Executive Director for the Farm Service Agency, to talk more about the process of crop reporting and the benefits of it, besides being able to take part in our program. But before I give the floor to her, I do want to ask that everyone mute themselves. I think most people are muted. That just will help with any background sound while our presenters are talking. And I also want to mention that this training is eligible to be used for your CAPE educational requirement. So if you are a recipient of CAPE, I'll just ask that you put Fayette cover crop in the presenter line on the education form. And also at the end of the presentations, I will give plenty of time for anybody who has any questions. And with that, Jennifer, you can go ahead and start.
You're muted.
It's not showing you muted, Jennifer. We just can't hear you for some reason. Might try jumping off and jumping back in.
So while Jennifer might be logging out and logging back in, if we wanted to go ahead and go into the next speaker, we have Steve Blanford. He is the state soil scientist for NRCS, and he will be talking a bit about soil science and encouraging folks to plant their cover crop in a more efficient and cost-effective way. So if you are able to get started, Steve, go ahead as soon as you're ready.
Can you see my screen, Heather?
Yes, thank you, Steve.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. I assume everybody else can see me and hear me. And I hate it that Jennifer couldn't come through with this right now. Hopefully she'll be able to come on after myself. But anyways, I'm glad to be moved up into batting order. I don't know, that's usually a good thing. So we'll see how it goes. Again, Heather has asked me to join the meeting tonight to talk about cover crops. And we kind of relate that to some of our soil health management systems. But before I get started, I'll tell you a little bit about who I am. My name is Steve Blanford. I'm the state soil scientist with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. I've been working with NRCS and previously the Soil Conservation Service for the past 34 plus years. Been a soil scientist the whole time. Moved all over Kentucky. Fortunately, was able to stay in Kentucky, but my whole career has been in Kentucky. So I live in Frankfort, work out of Lexington, know a lot about the soils in Fayette County. So if there's any questions about that, I'll be happy to address those. But I am going to talk about soil health tonight and a little bit about cover crops. So again, I know that a lot of you folks on here have probably heard about soil health or know about soil health. It seems like you can't go to a farm meeting or pick up a farm magazine and not hear something about soil health management systems, or cover crops. So I'm not going to go completely into depth into that. I will kind of hit the basics and we'll kind of start where we started at. And if you got any questions on the end, I'll be sure glad to go over them with you. So I'll get started. Soil health, before we can actually start talking about soil health, we need to know what soil health actually is. Soil health is the ability of the soil to sustain its intended use. And the key word in that is sustain. We don't mean for this year or next year, we mean for generations. And we think about the best way to sustain our soils is through no-till, residue management, cover crops, and crop rotations. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about this whole next 5 or 6 slides. And hopefully you'll see a kind of a repeating pattern of all of these slides about some of our history and seeing the same thing because it's kind of a repetitive deal. So the principles of soil health are minimize disturbance, maximize living cover, maximize biodiversity, and maintaining a living root 365 days a year. And what that really relates to is no-till, cover crops, diversity of cover crops, and a living root 365 days a year. And the reason why we stress that is the most important reason we use soil health and soil health management, residue management, and cover crops is to prevent erosion. Number one reason is to prevent erosion. Reason for that, you can't farm what you don't have. Next, the benefits of soil health, again, erosion control, aggregate stability, or the way the individual soil particles are held together. You guys have surely heard the term soil texture. What soil texture is how many individual particles of sand, silt, and clay you have in your soil. The way that sand, silt, and clay is held together is what is soil aggregates, and that's what we want, aggregate stability, which helps with our air and our water exchange. You can see the other benefits: increased water infiltration, increased available water, reduced runoff, therefore erosion, increased organic matter. That's what drives our soil health management systems, is our organic matter. And when we stress in our organic matter is our microorganisms. You know, no-till's been around for a long time, but we found out that no-till wasn't, our residue management wasn't quite enough to get our soil health management systems going. So we're trying to introduce cover crops to increase that biodiversity and bump up our organic matter. Of course, if you have good aggregate stability, you have reduced bulk density. You guys can think of bulk density of what you've heard of as compaction. You know, if you have low compaction, low bulk density, you have good infiltration, good aggregated soil. Weed suppression is one of them that hopefully our cover crops help to smother out our weeds. And then it says potential to increase profitability. That potential increase in profitability could be in several forms: reduced passes across the field, trying to eliminate or reduce some of our commercial nitrogen fertilizers or other fertilizers. Again, no-till farming is nothing new. Plaque here in Christian County, Kentucky. You can see that the first practices of no-till on Harry and Lawrence Young's farm there in Christian County. Kind of want you to pay attention to maybe the last three lines. You know, we talked a little bit about, you know, no-till, cover crops, residue management, rotation, aeration, infiltration, reduce runoff. You'll see here, conserves soil and water, saves time, labor, fuel, often produces higher crop yields. So again, this was kind of the introduction of soil health management systems back in the late 50s and early 60s. So this was part of the first part of that farm ugly era of the 1970s, where we used a lot of herbicides to knock down our weeds, and then just planted directly into our weeds and our residue. We eliminated a lot of tillage, and it looked ugly when we farmed, but it was very effective. Next, again, Christian County. I'm sure you're familiar with the county soil surveys. This is a picture that's in the Christian County Soil Survey book. That survey was published in the early 60s, so the field work was done in the late 50s. You can see in this picture a gentleman on an old, looks like an old International tractor with probably a drag type 6-foot bush hog. If you'll read the caption below, just remember the things we've already said. Crop residue slows runoff, helps control erosion, maintains organic matter. You know, these are some of the things that we talk about every day when we talk about soil health management systems. Kind of a new word in there, it says organic matter and good tilth. You know, a lot of times when people see the word tilth, they think of the word tillage, but really tilth doesn't really have anything to do with tillage. As you can see, the definition of tilth here is its physical condition, especially in relation to suitability to planting or growing a crop. Factors that determine tilth include the stability of aggregate soil particles, soil structure, you know, your moisture content, your degree of, I can't see that word, my picture's in the way there, degree of infiltration, aeration, again, about water management, creating good soil structure so we can get an air and water exchange so that we can have healthy functioning soils. Okay, so You know, this is nothing new, been around since the late 50s, early 60s. So 60 plus years later, where are we today? Here's where we're at today. You know, you look at this picture and you see a lot of the red, mostly red in this picture. That is a function of erosion. You know, not a lot going on here. And when I look at this landscape, I see a lot of time spent with trips across the field, a lot of money spent, and a lot of erosion. Definitely not what we consider our soil health management systems. You know, I think some of the soil health guys would say that the soils in this picture are naked, thirsty, hungry, and running a fever. And that would be exactly right. Again, all of those red spots are where the topsoil's been removed, and you can see some of those lower lying areas that tend to be browner in nature. That's where the topsoil's been deposited. Erosion, 3 phases of erosion: detachment, displacement, and deposition. It's detached from the upper parts of the slope. It's moved to lower slope and deposited. Erosion, bad thing. The way to prevent erosion: residue management and cover crops. What we want these landforms to look like is having good residue through the winter, cover crops planted to also help carry us through the winter. In this picture, it's a little difficult to see, but this is cereal rye. You can see some of those red bulbs in there. That's the remnants of a crimson clover that's kind of past its maturity date. There's also some Austrian winter pea in here. Kind of our standard blend is cereal rye, crimson red clover, Austrian winter pea, and a daikon radish. Kind of that blend, because, you know, different cover crop species encourage different biological critters in the soil, and the root systems are quite a bit different, so that they help form that aggregate stability or create that soil structure. Again, we can terminate our cover crops. You can see the spray coop moving across the field pretty easy. This is a pretty good stand of cereal rye. I think this was actually a pure stand of cereal rye. Our planters nowadays have enough down pressure. We can move through these cover crops pretty, you know, without any problem of getting seed to soil contact. That's always been kind of a fear in the past, is, you know, I've got to till that soil to get the air and the water in there, and I've got to get to that seed to soil contact. You know, with our equipment nowadays, you just don't need to do that. You can drill directly into our cover crops. This is what it looks like, the field after it's planted. You know, this fields have gone through the winter with the residue and the cover crops and the microorganisms working to build soil structure, prevent erosion, and kind of carry us through the winter with that living root 365 days a year. Other forms of termination of our cover crops, you see a roller crimper here. I think this is actually down at Western Kentucky University on some of the research plots. Looks like probably an 8 or 10 foot roller. Pretty good for our tobacco farmers and our vegetable crop production folks. But when we go up to what we call our commercial scale farming, all you got to do is get a bigger roller crimper. This is one of our landowners over in Hickman County. His name is Jerry Perry. Very good soil health management ambassador for us for the state. You can see that he has just upscaled this roller crimper to fit his equipment. This is a 40-foot roller crimper. The reason why it's 40 foot, that's what his planter is, 40 foot. You've got to plant with your cover crop is the way it's rolled down. So that's why his 40-foot planter rolls through it pretty well. Just a more close-up version. What he did is took an old Kinsey toolbar for his planter and took his planter off of it and equipped it with his rollers. Pretty daggone effective. Other ways that we can see, well, here's another close-up of course, he rolled down with this roller crimper, his cereal rye, and you can see his planter is having no problem getting through the system. Now, the catch on this is, as many of you know, you have to plant the way you rolled. That's why your roller needs to fit the size of your equipment. This is another way that you can plant into your cover crops. Again, a cereal rye, standing monoculture or cereal rye. You can see the corn that's growing in there in the rows. And what they did is, this is what we call planting in the green. They ran their planter through this standing cereal rye and then came back and sprayed over the top before the corn started growing. It seems like, the problems that are the reasons why folks don't use cover crops is one, they say they don't have the right equipment to drill their cover crops in. Again, this is out in Hickman County, Mr. Perry again. This was 220 plus bushel corn on the uplands. And you can see that he's running his drill right behind his combine, and his drill's got enough down pressure to cut through this 220 bushel corn residue that was on his farm. Again, the reason why a lot of the landowners say they don't like to use cover crops is one, they don't have the right equipment. They don't want to pay for that equipment. They don't have the manpower. They don't have the time, or they don't have the cost, don't want to spend the money for the cover crop seed. So that's kind of the reasons that we hear a lot of why people don't use cover crops. So we at NRCS, we're trying to think of ways that we could increase the number of cover crops and kind of get around those problems that the people are talking about, the equipment, the time, the manpower, the cost. So we went up to Indiana to see what they were doing. And the reason why we went to Indiana is Indiana and Illinois don't have quite the growing season that we do. So they do a lot of what we call interseeding into their standing cash crops. You can see that this is a bigger spray rig, and they have taken their spray tank off and mounted a seed tank on where the spray tank was, and they're blowing their seeds down into their standing cash crops. And here's an example of one of them that's running through the field. You can see this is a corn crop. Obviously, all you're seeing is the hoses that run down in between the corn rows. And this seed is being blown down, 6-8 inches from the ground, so that you are getting some contact with the ground. You're not just blowing it into your corn. Other forms of doing this is aerial seeding. I'm not a big fan of aerial seeding. It seems like you either hit a home run or you strike out on aerial seeding. And the people that like it really like it, but I'm not a big fan of it, because I just think you have to increase your seeding rate so high to get your seed to reach the soil. So we thought about, let's do something with interseeding. So we initiated a conservation innovation grant through the Natural Resources Conservation Service. And the request for proposal went out, and through this request for proposal, we asked that you work on a system to interseed cover crops into your standing cash crops. And the proposals came in. The folks that received the Conservation Initiative grant were the National Corn Growers Association. They worked with the Nature Conservancy to mount cedar boxes on different pieces of equipment to see how we could get this done. You see the APV cedar up next to the cab of the combine, and you see the hoses running down to the bean head, just kind of a closer up version of the front of the combine, and the cedar box right there beside the combine head. You'll see that the hoses run down from the cedar box and blow seed out underneath the head. These are the hoses that are right on the back of the bean head, and there's some splash pans at the end of these hoses that help distribute the seed so that the seeds not just drop in one row. It kind of hits this pan and disperses it. This is the combine running. Obviously, the seeds are getting blown under the head, and the bean residue is getting deposited on top of the seeds, kind of working as a mulch. And you guys know that with farming, it's all about timing, and it's all about the weather. And, it just so happens that I was there when they were running this combine, and that night they got about a ½ inch of rain. So about 8 to 10 days later, the guy that his name was Mark Turner over in Ohio County is where we were using this. He sent me a picture of his cover crops that had come up under the combine system. And really, he sent me this picture to gloat because, a lot of the problems was with the cost of the cover crop seed. And what you're looking at is 5 pounds of ryegrass, a pound of triticale, and a pound of daikon radish. Pretty inexpensive to put out 7 pounds of cover crop per acre. This is kind of a close up. You can see the ryegrass. The daikon radish is kind of that broadleaf that's kind of lobed with it. You can see some triticale down in there. That's a broadleaf that doesn't really tend to have the lobes. So again, 5 pounds of cereal rye, a pound of daikon radish, and a pound of triticale. Pretty daggone good system. This was about 20 to 25 days later. You can still see the triticale, the daikon radish, and the cereal rye. Looks pretty daggone good. You're not going to get a lot of erosion there. Your microbes are working. You've got different root systems. Your daikon radishes is working to scavenge any nitrogen that's left over in the system. And that's kind of what we like to see in our soil health management systems. And the reason why Mark was wanting to gloat is when we were running that system, he asked me if I thought 7 pounds of cover crop seed was enough. And I said, I didn't even think it would be even close to being enough. And I think he sends me these pictures just to show me how wrong I was. Again, this is the spring of this year. You can see on the right, that's the cereal rye. Most of your triticale and your turnips have winter killed and they're gone. One of the benefits we talked about cover crops was weed suppression. Obviously on the left-hand side is just weeds, and you see that hen bit growing in that low spot there. As you see where the hen bit moves over into where the ryegrass is, it seems to be less. So your cover crops are working to smother out your weeds or kind of suppress your weeds. So what we're trying to do with this system is encourage our landowners to use cover crops more throughout the state. I go a lot around the state and I talk about soil health management systems and I do soil health demos, and everybody talks about how great the demos are and how well it is about creating soil structure and getting that air and the water exchange. But our adoption rate on cover crops is really not that high. And again, we asked why, and it was the equipment, the time, the manpower, and the labor, and the cost. So hopefully this Conservation Initiative grant can work to encourage more cover crop use throughout the state. And Heather, that's pretty much what I've got. I'll be glad later on, whenever we all get through our program, to answer any questions. I kind of jumped around soil health a little bit because I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, but I'll be glad to talk about it in any way, shape, form, or fashion.
Thank you, Steve. That was great. I think that we'll wait till the end for questions, if that's okay. I'm gonna try to go back in to get Jennifer's presentation shared. She's able to join on her cell, and I'm gonna get that open now.
Can you guys hear me? Can you guys hear me now?
I can hear you, Jennifer.
Great. I'm going to try to share my screen real quick here. Sorry, I think in all this telework experience, I may or may not have had a child spill a drink on my laptop. My microphone has been giving me some trouble. So if you'll just bear with me just real quick, I'll share my screen with you guys. Okay, hang on 1 second. I can't get it. Here we go. All right, again, my name is Jennifer with Farm Service Agency. I'm the County Executive Director for FSA in Franklin County, Scott County, Jessamine, Woodford, Anderson, 6 counties we have now. We still do have an office there in Lexington. We also, the same folks work out of Lexington as Versailles. And I was just going to talk about a few things. Number one, I want to thank Heather for inviting me on to let me talk to you guys a little bit about what we do and how best to do your crop report. Heather spoke earlier about for eligibility for this program that you have to do a crop report. So hopefully I'm going to tie in for some of you new folks I see on here. I talk to maybe every other day. Some of you I don't, maybe once a month. First of all, I'll do some basic things. What's Farm Service Agency? We're part of USDA. We provide programs and loans to help farmers and ag partner organizations provide food, fuel, fiber to millions of people worldwide. We serve livestock producers, grain producers, orchards, vineyards, vegetable producers, and landowners interested in conservation efforts.
Hey, Jennifer.
Yeah.
Are you sharing your screen?
Yes. Can you see it?
I can't see it.
See
No,
on my
I
end,
don't have it.
man, this is crazy. I worry that it's not a security thing on my computer because Zoom doesn't work the best on these. Heather, can you share it?
Yeah, let me, I
Why
will
don't
get that
you
up
share
right
it?
now.
Yes, because it's these USDA computers are tight, wound tight. See if you can share it. We have major issues with Zoom and our computers. It might take Heather just a minute to pull it up. Because when I hit share screen, it looks like it's sharing on my end, but Zoom and USDA computers don't work. We use a whole other, some kind of security thing.
I got it up now and I am going to share it. And then if you want to change to the next slide, just let me know and I'll change to the next one.
Sounds perfect. Now, yeah, that looks great. You can just go to slideshow up there on the top ribbon right there and do from the beginning. Yeah, play from the start. Perfect. All right, you can advance it just a little bit. One more. Okay, so this is who we serve. This shows you guys the folks we serve. Just about everybody who grows anything for profit. All right, one more, Heather. We like to call ourselves a safety net. Our programs that we offer through our office aren't necessarily designed for anyone to get rich, but we are designed to help producers in difficult weather and events. We also have programs in place to help producers to overcome market volatility. So like if the prices drop, we basically subsidize our food market, our food systems from the farmer end. We like to say that we provide a hand up in those who put food on our table. All right, one more. She talked about having some other things that we do, which is really important, is we issue farm serial numbers to new and existing farmers and landowners. Just about any local, federal, or state program that any producer or landowner wants cost share or assistance for in county, in state, and local, they have to have a farm serial number, and we issue those numbers. And the long and the short of that is that it attaches your social security number to a parcel of land and a payment. So we are the entity that does that. We can provide aerial and digital imagery to producers and landowners. And we try to work with agencies like Fayette County Conservation District, and other organizations for educational purposes about existing programs that might benefit a landowner. And then we're officially the entity for crop reporting, which is what we're going to get into here in just a second. All right, Heather. Why should you complete a crop report? Crop reporting is the official recording record of everything planted on your land. And there's a misconception among landowners and farmers that if they don't have crop insurance, if they're not big corn growers, grain growers, then there's really not much use to come into Farm Service Agency and report your crops. That's a few things I want to talk to you guys about why it's so important to do your crop report. It doesn't matter if it's grass, grain, tobacco, cattle, vineyards. There's a benefit to coming in and filing your crop report with us. First thing is eligibility for state and local programs, programs like the Conservation District, federal programs that we have. Crop insurance requires a crop report. Actually, payment rates, the USDA, like we'll have payment rates based on planted acres in the county or state. Based on, we saw just in last year with the coronavirus food assistance program, there were a ton of folks who got left out of that program because they did not report what they had planted on the farm. Maybe I grew corn here and I didn't report it to Farm Service Agency where you weren't eligible for those payment acres. More than anything, your crop report tells the story of your farm. And more often than not, I've seen where crop reports tell a story in an instance maybe where you're getting audited. It can help supplemental information for tax reasons, for eligibility for programs. It can also give you a great picture of soil health. If you can't remember when you planted the alfalfa last, if you don't know if you did cover crop 2 years ago, how old is that stand of some kind of perennial plant? We keep that history for you. So I think if you're conservation minded or you're just that, it's a free service we offer to give you that crop report. It tells the history of your farm for future programs and present programs. So in my mind, I tell everybody, it doesn't matter what you grow, you should come complete a crop report. All right, Heather, we'll move to the next one. People come in and they want to do a crop report. So we give them a map. We'll talk a little bit more about the maps. Make sure they have a farm serial number. We give them a map. When we finish the crop report, farmers call back later and say, well, they walk out like, the acreage doesn't look quite right. We can fix it later. We have a lot of producers that come in and we may be off 5 or 10 acres. In some instances, it doesn't matter, but in some instances, it really does, especially in terms of cover crop and wheat for grain, any kind of grain crop. It really matters that we get that acreage right. USDA establishes really hard, fast deadlines for completing crop reports. And any areas you find, we need to fix them as soon as we can to prevent eligibility issues or payment issues. Just a rule of thumb, crop reports are generally due by July 15th. Those are for your big crops, your cash crops, your tobacco, your corn, your soybeans, your cereal grains, your cover crops, your wheat, your barley. That stuff is December 15th, and that is very confusing for people. So whatever you're going to put out this fall for cover crop, you have till December 15th to report that. And this is going to work in great timing with the program Heather's talking about. Another misconception is I planted wheat for grain on that last fall, and it wasn't insured, so it doesn't matter. Well, for soil health reasons, it definitely matters that you planted wheat on there last year. But reporting all small grains for grain and for cover only are important to tell your farm story. For crop insurance, crop rotation, program compliance, and just managing your soil health. A lot of folks forget that's just simply put to report their wheat to us, any kind of cover crop to us, because they think it doesn't matter, but truly it does. Let's say, I can give you an instance where people can file complaints on people, and believe it or not, we get that. If you have a major erosion issue, we could be your story that you did put cover crop on there. We can tell your story even in an instance where you have a crop insurance claim. You do have crop insurance. You have a claim on your crop insurance, and they say, well, we're really investigating your management, your soil health management. Do you ever put a cover crop? You say, sure. They say, show me the crop report. Well, you don't have one. Give me evidence of your crop rotations. This is where crop reports for your guys who are doing big cash crops, who are doing any type of grain crop. This tells your story. I've seen a cover crop report really help out a person on a crop insurance claim on wheat or soybeans. So I can't tell you, it just, a lot of people don't attach a big payment. They just think it's kind of insignificant to report this wheat and these fall seeded grains. But really, I've seen several times where you should. All right, Heather, we'll keep going to the next one. The other misconception here again is I just planted that for cover and I tilled it under, and there's no use reporting that. Well, you can till it under, you can see through it, report everything that you put out. Tells your story again for crop insurance, crop rotation, program eligibility, even some federal programs that we had. People got paid by the acre for any wheat they had reported to us the previous fall. So be sure that you always come in every fall and report your crops. I would say in Fayette County, I just only have a handful of folks who come in and report their grain. I have seen an increase thanks to Heather's programs and support from some conservation district. That makes me happy because we're increasing soil health. I'm getting a good picture that Lexington's not just covered in concrete, which makes me crazy. That we really have active farmers interested in their land and their farm. So I want to applaud her and everyone else's efforts on the conservation district for kind of getting some interest so we can get a better picture of people participating in the in reporting cover crops. The other little problem that I'll go over is farmers who come in, they say, I'll just add my fall planted cover crops or my wheat on when I do my crop report this summer. So many of you come in the summertime before July 15th and you say, hey, Jennifer, I got double crop beans. And here's my plant date. I put wheat in before that. Well, in the summertime, I can't put your wheat in. You have to have your wheat reported before December 15th. If you then after December 15th, you come in June and you give me your double crop beans, we have a fully reported crop report. Our software and these crop reports can tell if it's a double crop or a full season planting of something. All fall seeded crops have to be reported again by December 15th, especially with double crop beans. One other piece of telling us your cover crops, we have to have fully reported crop reports for ARC PLC and grain-based payments, meaning that if you come in and you just give me double crop beans, we're really showing that you missed a whole something, not only your crop work. You have to have a fully reported crop report for program payments if your farm has a grain base on it. All right, we'll go to the next one, Heather. Here's another one. There's no reason for me to do a crop report because my farm has non-traditional crops. We have the capacity to report any crops that you have. I want to encourage you beyond crop reports for your traditional crops, any non-traditional crops that you grow, vineyards, grapevines, orchards. We can take those. We can do hives, anything we can do. Again, it just helps your eligibility for any federal programs that may come down the pike, especially with COVID and the volatile food systems and markets. We never know what programs could come. we're your official record. So just give us that record and you're eligible for programs that could come. And I think this is the last one. It says I raise livestock on my farm. I don't have to report any hay or grazing acres. I get that a lot. And I think that's probably the biggest, for Fayette County, that's the biggest thing. If I had one thing I would fix is that for producers to come in, do your cover crop, number one, and come report your grazing and hay acres while you're at it. Hay and pasture crop reports are necessary for any type of disaster payments. If we have a drought, if you have livestock losses, we actually have insurance that you can take out on your grazing and haying acres. So doing a crop report, even for your grass, for hay, anything like that, you can come in and do that basically anytime and keep those on file with us. We actually have a continuous process where you put it in one time and you don't have to come back by and do it. It stays in there until you come in and change it otherwise. So I want to, when they look at federal programs and the importance of agriculture and active farms from a federal level, a lot of their information comes from what's reported with Farm Service Agency. I won't tell you that being the county executive director in Lexington, we have a lot of crop reports, but I wish we had a real depiction of every acre of grazing and farmland for the county. It only helps us for federal programs, for eligibility. It helps shape legislation. It helps shape some of these programs that eventually do benefit farmers in our area. With our lush grass, we are a diverse area, and these crop reports tell the story. Sometimes I wish we had more grazing pasture to show a really good picture of diversity. The diversity that this area of agriculture has. I think particularly when the coronavirus food assistance program came, the national office and national program people were just in shock. They're like, wow, we did not realize the diversity of these agriculture crops. The best one was we had no idea the cattle that you had there in Kentucky, which we all know why our cattle numbers are as big as they are. But we didn't have the crop reports for years to really support what the picture of agriculture actually is. So I just want to challenge each of you, when you come in to do your crop reports, let's do it all. We get your crop report, we're going to report everything you have. So we do our part in telling the agriculture story for Fayette County. All right, Heather, we'll move on to the next one. All right, so how to report your crops. You're going to come in and you're going to, hang on, Heather, go back one slide, maybe. Okay, no, you're right. Yeah, go to the next one. Sorry. All right. You're going to call our office and you're going to ask for a map of your farm. We're going to give you a map of the farm. Your first thing you're going to do is write the shares of the crop on the map. If I am leasing a farm from Heather, do we share crop that farm? Does she get instead of a cash lease on the farm, do her and I share in the risk of the crop? If I'm 50-50 on the farm with Heather, that's the first thing I'm going to put. 50% Jennifer Hudnall, 50% Heather. I'm going to write that on the top. If I picked up another farm, let's say I've picked up a farm from Bo, I'm leasing one of his farms, I need to tell the county office that at that point, so they can give me the right maps. Anytime you can call our office. Right now, we cannot have farmers in. That's going to be the little tough part, but hopefully I have some more slides here to cover that. One of our staff members can help you through the process. You are going to email your marked maps. We're somehow going to get you a map. We're either going to email them to you. We can leave you outside the door, your marked maps. You are going to circle the field and you're going to put how many acres and what crop that is. Now, in this cover crop situation, it's really important that you write on there, is it for cover crop or is it for grain only? There's a difference with our programs. From my understanding, Heather, and you correct me if I'm wrong, you guys are planning on doing cost share, whether it's wheat for grain or for cover. Is that correct or no?
Right, that's right.
Okay, so just be sure if it's wheat for cover or wheat or a cover or just a grain, be sure you let us know on that map. And you need to allow us plenty of time to complete it. We have to have any kind of grain crops done, all that crop reports entered before December 15th, 2021. And again, it does take it's a little bit different. We can't have people in, but we definitely can work through email. We have some systems through OneSpan we can send you. There's several different ways that we can have a kind of a touchless way of working through these crop reports. And do I have one more or no, Heather? Yes. Here's a few other things. I may have some other slides. You want to give us an email address? We're going to make arrangements for how we get your farm apps to you. You're going to include the crop, plant date, acreage of each crop. And actually, we have a little cheat sheet we can email with you or put in with your maps. And then clearly mark if the fall planted crop is for grain or cover crop. All right, one more, Heather. So here's kind of what I drew up today. It's what your map should include. So here's like a farm map. I did this from my computer today. This shows this feels like a 21-acre field. I'm going to circle the fields. I got a 12-acre field of wheat, and then I have one's for cover crop, one's for grain. I'm going to do my plant date on there. I'm going to put it's 25/75. I just put my husband on that one. That would be the shares in which we're cropping it. I get 25%. He gets 75%. If you have 100%, just 100%, and then put my phone number and maybe email address in the bottom corner. Once you return that to us, you can scan it to us, or you can drop it off and slip it under the door at the office. We'll enter that into the software and get you your crop report. Heather, there should be one more after this one. This is what it actually looks like on our end. Whatever you give us, this is a picture of one that I found. We go back through here, and I know for you all, this just absolutely looks crazy. But whatever you give us, we go in, we have to name the fields. We have to have how many acres and the plant date. So that's what it'll end up looking like before we enter it in the computer. I don't see that I had any double crop soybeans. But that's basically what it looks like after we get a hold of it. And again, just give us some, number one, grace in these times. Give us plenty of time, call ahead, send an email. And then if you'll go to the next slide, what we've got, there's 4 of us working in 2 offices, primarily in Fayette County. You're going to have Tracy and Courtney Sparks. That's their email addresses. Chelsea works primarily in Versailles office. Any of the 4 of us can help you get you your maps, email them all to you, and set a drop off outside. But any of us are more than willing to help you at any time. If you have questions, it's better for us to have too much information on your crop report than not. And again, once we get that signature, we can figure out a way, Heather and I will figure out a way to get you that crop, get her the information, get you the printed crop report back to turn in with your application with Heather. So again, thanks for everything. Thanks for allowing me to come on here and for my technical difficulties with my microphone. And that's all I have.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. So she said it, get in and get your crop reports done by December 15th. Tell your friends. There's a massive benefit on the producer's end, but just for record keeping purposes, it lets us know a lot about the community, what the community's needs are, and it helps provide information to keep programs like our local cover crop program going. So with that,
Question. May I
Yeah.
ask a question?
sure.
Okay, even if your farm is used for grazing, like horses and cattle, do you need a report?
Yeah, I think it's really important to go on and give us that crop report, because it tells the story of your farm. It's kind of you if doing your part about telling Fayette County's ag story. Let's say if we had a drought, if we had a drought type situation and you had your hay and grazing acres reported, then you could be eligible for a payment. Actually, there is a program. If you're a female landowner or minority landowner, you have your haying and you can have free crop insurance on your haying and grazing acres. That's just another safety net that we would have. But absolutely, that's what I really, as a goal of mine, to capture some of those hay and grazing acres for Fayette County, just in case we do have a disaster. There's instances where we hit a certain drought declaration, and there's a program that comes open to help you offset your grazing. And we say, we're going to give you this much money to offset feed costs because you don't have the grazing acres. That crop report would make you eligible for that program. So absolutely.
Thank you.
Hey, Ellen, I also wanted to say that if you have a tenant or a producer who operates on your farm, they can do the reporting as long as they are associated with your land parcel in the Farm Service Agency's registration. Isn't that right, Jennifer?
That is correct. Absolutely.
It's for the acreage that they lease, okay?
Mhm. Alan, they can report your acreage for you, but we would need your signature on your part. Basically,
Would you repeat that, please?
they can actually do the crop report for you too. We would just need your signature if you're on the crop report.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
With agroforestry, if you're doing, for example, pigs and swine and letting them root more naturally out in the forest, is there something that you also do with that, or do you just report it as livestock acreage?
You would, from what I know, we would just put that in as grazing. And I know that sounds crazy, but that would be, I would have to research and make sure there's nothing, but that would actually just be grazing acres for livestock. Absolutely, we can do that.
So grazing acreage for livestock should be reported also.
Yes, ma'am. Any hay, forage, anything like that, cover crop should be reported. Yes.
But that could be by the owner and not necessarily by the leasing.
Right. It should be whoever has shares on that would be the person who would need to sign it. Here's the way I look at things. If Heather has leased the farm to me, I can go into FSA and I can give all the information. But now if I've put on there that Heather gets a share in the crop, she also needs to sign that too. So anybody, like Heather says, affiliated with the farm can give the information. But if your name is on that, you'll be required to sign.
Okay.
So does that mean, so I think what you're saying is if I'm leasing out acreage and I have no share in the crop, then I would not report that?
No, if you're leasing out the acreage and you're grazing on it, you do have a share in the crop. You do have a share in the grazing acres.
Well, if in this hypothetical, I don't do anything with the land, I'm just leasing it out.
Okay, if you're leasing it out, then we call it that you are at risk for the crop. That actually most people that come in are leasing their ground. The federal government sees it no different. Me leasing the ground for
Okay, I'm gonna get the Zoom up. You come on back down here. You got ketchup. You got a cup.
we still don't see any difference in like leasing it for corn or leasing it to
Got a
graze.
bull?
We just have who's at risk for the crop. So if you pay a lease, then you would be the one who could report that.
So in other words, if I lease out a field for horse grazing, I'm the one at risk because I have to have the good pasture.
Sure. And a lot of times what we tell people is we call a landowner is always at risk. They're always at risk for even the person they lease out to. But if you lease out another field on another farm, you're at risk for the quality of that grazing land for it. Yes. So you could file a crop report.
Let me ask you this, if there is no trauma like a drought, but the field needs to be reseeded, is there any help with the cost on that?
Actually, Heather would probably be a great resource. It's my understanding there are some programs through the CAPE program, and Heather, I don't want to talk out of my wheelhouse here, but there are some incentives to the CAPE program to reseed pasture renovation. And she could, from my end, from FSA, there is not, but Heather could talk a little bit better about maybe the CAPE program.
Okay. You're a disaster. She's CAPE. Okay.
That's right. That's right.
I got it. That's helpful. Thank you.
All right. With that, I think that we can go ahead and move on. If anybody has more questions, feel free to ask them at the end of the program. But for now, we'll go ahead and next up is Scott Franklin. He manages the commercial rye cover crop project for American Farmland Trust. And he's going to talk a little bit about that initiative and American Farmland Trust. So if you're ready, Scott, you can go ahead.
Sounds great. Appreciate the opportunity, Heather, to be on. I'm just going to try here and let's see, just get this slideshow going. All right. Can everyone see that and hear me? All right, we're good.
Yes.
Hi, guys. My name is Scott Franklin. I work for American Farmland Trust. I'm the Commercial Rye Cover Crop Project Manager. It's an innovative initiative we have here in the state of Kentucky. AFT is just one of many partners in the project, but really the goal of our project is to grow high quality cereal rye to develop a network of farmers and buyers. And that's so we can protect our soils, provide economic returns to farmers, and hopefully strengthen the supply chain here in Kentucky. And again, in this picture right in the background, this is actually in Fayette County. This is at the James Farm. I was working with Bob and Robert James on the Rye Initiative. And that's from this past fall. Hopefully I can advance here. Again, just a little bit of background about myself. My name is Scott Franklin. I'll have my contact information at the end of the slideshow. If you don't know American Farmland Trust, we're a national organization. We have three main missions. Number one, that's protecting farmland through conservation easements. We hope to promote regenerative farming practices like the Rye Project, and ultimately we want to keep farmers on the land. So again, we're a national organization. We're based in DC, but we have field offices throughout the country, including in Louisville, Kentucky. And that's where I'm based out of. So again, just a little bit of background about the initiative. This is a partnership with multiple organizations, again, to grow rye, which has traditionally just been used as a cover crop. And it's really to take it one step beyond, to grow it to the full grain stage. And this is really spawned by the Kentucky Ag Development Fund. They take tobacco settlement dollars and distribute them to innovative projects throughout the state. So they provided funding for this project, in addition to support from Brown-Forman, Woodford Reserve, Dendra Fund. We work very closely with the Kentucky Small Grain Growers Association, in addition to the UK College of Ag. We work most closely with Dr. Chad Lee and Dr. Dave Van Sanford, who many of you might know. We also work with Walnut Grove Farms in Southwest Kentucky. So we have a couple of goals that I want to highlight. And that's really, again, we're trying to grow more cereal rye throughout the state. So in the 2021 harvest season, which actually just finished up just over a month ago, we had 27 farmers participating throughout the state. That represented 21 counties, and we grew 1,500 acres of cereal rye. So you can see this map in the upper right-hand corner. That represents all the counties that we had farmers in last year, including Fayette County. So we have a couple goals, and one that's to enroll 20 new farmers every year. So we received 3 years of funding from the Kentucky Ag Development Board. We're hoping to we had 27 farmers last year, and then again, 20 farms enrolling this year. Hope to have 3,000 acres by 2023. So in year one, we're already to that halfway point, which is exciting. And then by 2030, we hope to have 10,000 acres. This initiative is exciting. There's a reimbursement for each farm who participates. It's a $550 per acre guarantee up to 25 acres per farm, or $13,750 max per farm. So to do that, you enroll with me. It's 2 short forms to go through, and then we work collaboratively with your UK county extension agent. We provide technical assistance to all the farmers, and then at the end of the day, we don't want you to be stuck with a newer crop. Again, you may have experience growing rye as a cover crop, but we want to make sure that if you grow it to the grain stage, we can connect you with end users who are willing to buy that grain. So we work with distillers, brewers, bakers, companies who are purchasing this rye for cover crop seed, animal feed, you name it. So it's a little bit of background about the initiative. Just wanted to highlight, again, some market opportunities. Again, we're following market prices very closely for cereal rye right now. And actually the best opportunity is actually as a cover crop seed. It's tending to go for over $10 to $12 a bushel for rye. But again, wanted to kind of match up where our farmers are growing the rye. There's a huge contingency in central Kentucky. The majority of our farmers actually grow rye in central Kentucky. But again, so the top map is where we had farmers in the 2021 harvest season. And the lower map here shows kind of some market opportunities. So in the state of Kentucky, we have 75 plus distillers who are buying Kentucky corn, Kentucky wheat, and now Kentucky rye. There are 70 craft brewers in the state. We have 10 millers and bakers. I know Jennifer mentioned earlier, we're a big beef producing state. So there's an opportunity to potentially incorporate cereal rye as part of the feed ration, certainly for beef, poultry, opportunities to bale the straw and use that in premium horse bedding. So I think one of the exciting bits is there are markets out there, and we're working with farmers to grow high quality rye. So we're working collaboratively with UK, with the extension agents in the state, and there's really an opportunity for farms of all scales to participate. So how this has worked in previous years, some farms participate. Again, there's a max reimbursement of 25 acres. If you have fewer acres that you want to enroll, that's okay. And actually many farms are seeing that there's a market for this crop, so they're planting more. Again, there's a max of 25 acres, but depending on your farming operation, it may be easier for you to plant 50 acres in order to get the combine out there, or the planter. So it's exciting opportunities for kind of all farmers here. And just wanted to end with some pictures. This is in the 2020 harvest season. This is again kind of the whole life cycle of rye. To grow it as a high quality grain, it's best to plant actually starting now, the last 2 weeks of September through the end of October. So we have about a month and a half left of really good planting weather. We've seen it pushed into November, but it kind of ultimate yield and quality might suffer a little bit. But kind of top left picture here, this is kind of early spring. And again, this is as the rye is drying down in June, right before harvest. So you can see that. This is in Clark County, a field in Clark County. Again, just to give you a picture, this is in May of this year. So you can see a nice healthy crop. And I know Steve alluded to this. Steve and I work closely on another project here in the state, working with rye farmers actually. And again, there's a lot of soil health benefits to growing rye. It keeps soil on the farm. Steve said it best, when you can't farm what you don't have. Keeps water on the farm soil. It's keeping the nutrients in place. Rye actually scavenges nutrients, so it might lower inputs on subsequent crops. And rye really fits a good double crop rotation here in Kentucky. So a lot of our farms actually plant cereal rye after their corn harvest, and then they'll plant a late season bean after the rye harvest on that second year. And this is from this year. This is actually in Henry County at Mark Roberts' farm. And you can see he's actually maybe a little bit hard to see in the right-hand picture, but this is rye residue after harvest, and he cut it a little on the higher side just to keep that biomass and to keep the soil protected, to keep the water and nutrients there. And in the right-hand side, you can see a younger soybean crop emerging, which is really exciting. So just again, it fits into multiple crop rotations pretty nicely. And just wanted to close out with an actual picture of a rye harvest this year. This is actually in Pulaski County. Again, just thankful for the opportunity to present a little more information. If any of the farmers or growers on the call tonight are interested in joining, now's the time to enroll. If you'd like to get in contact with me, I have my email right here, sfranklin@farmland.org. Also my phone number, you can just give me a direct call if you have any more questions, and we can get you enrolled. So again, appreciate the opportunity and happy to stick around for questions.
If you got a smaller farm where maybe it's not easy to use a combine, what kind of options do you have for something like that?
That's a great question. Thanks, Mick. So we've actually worked with one farmer, so two farmers previously in this project who were actually growing it as a forage. So one did have a much smaller combine, again, not a self-propelled unit, but a 3-point or PTO operated, on the back of the tractor. So there's an opportunity there. And then we actually worked with one farmer who was grazing the rye for their sheep. So again, there's opportunities. If you can't harvest it to the full grain stage, that's okay. We're willing to work with farmers, who may be trialing something new. Again, it's just a new market outlet for the crop. If rye is a good forage for sheep, we want to know about that, and that would certainly be eligible to apply. And same, this smaller farmer grew about 12 acres. Again, harvested it with a very small, about a 60-inch wide old Alice Chalmers all crop, and actually fed that to his pigs. And so we actually ended up doing a feed quality analysis on it. Again, we're open. We're just trying to get more acres of cereal rye to use as a cover crop and to double as a cash crop. So.
Thank you so much, Scott. Does anybody have any questions for Scott or Steve or Jennifer? All right, well, I just want to remind you all, and Bo put this in the chat, that if you are applying for CAPE, you are able to use this training program as your educational requirement. Just fill in Fayette cover crop in the presenter line on the education form when that time comes. Thank you so much to all of our presenters and for everybody who came tonight. I have recorded this, so if you would like to view the recording or copies of the slideshows, I can send that to you. Just email me. But with that, I think we'll close. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, Heather.
Good show. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Good job.
Thanks, Heather.